Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Jordan, and welcome to Menopausitive,
I got a good feeling.
where we take a refreshingly positive approach to navigating menopause. If you're looking for practical tips, expert advice, and honest conversations, think of this as your personal pick and mix for how to optimize your body. Although we can't prevent menopause, we can redefine it. And that journey starts now. Quick favor before we start. If you're enjoying these conversations, please hit follow and rate the show. It helps more women find us, and it means I can keep bringing you brilliant guests and empowering conversations. Have you ever noticed how much of your life you already run like a business? Whether it's managing your household, your career, your family calendar, you're the one setting the goals, managing the resources, putting out the fires, keeping everyone on track. There are budgets to balance, team members to motivate, and sometimes a little crisis to manage. And yet, when it comes to our health, especially menopause, many of us outsource how we feel. We outsource decisions, ignore early warning signs. I've been there. I was ignorant of perimenopause. Some of the symptoms and systems that I'd built for running my life, well, they just stopped working as well as they used to. I really believe that women should see managing menopause as part of their life success strategy. Whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 or the CEO of your household. So I started wondering, what if we approached menopause the way we approached leadership, with strategy, curiosity, and a great team around us? Because when you think about it, being the CEO of your menopause is about self-leadership. It's about knowing your business, understanding your body, your hormones, your changing priorities. It's about setting strategy. What do you want this next chapter to look like? And it's about building the right team, doctors, coaches, friends who can help you make decisions from a place of strength, not stress. So today, I'm joined by two incredible women who help others do exactly that. Lucy Barkas is a leadership coach and author who helps women lead with courage and authenticity. She's a regular contributor on the BBC and Sky News and has penned the Amazon bestseller Leader X, a guide for Generation X leaders to step into their power and lead with confidence. And Karen Heras Kelly, a leading voice in midlife empowerment and female leadership. Karen is a holistic leadership practitioner and certified empowerment coach. Grazia calls her the visualizer. And she's been featured in Good Housekeeping and the Daily Telegraph, having spent over 2 decades transforming the lives of women worldwide with her unique approach of weaving ancient wisdom with modern coaching practices. In 2025, Lucy and Karen launched Wise Women Lead, a consultancy created to close the gender gap in leadership and champion a new model of leadership that is wise, balanced, and feminine. Karen and Lucy, welcome to Menopausitive.
Thank you so much. My heart is open.
I'm just really happy to be here.
Lucy, is it possible to approach menopause the way we approach leadership?
Absolutely. One of the things that I always say to everybody anyway is whether you're leading your own life, leading a whole organization or just a local community or even your family, it's essentially the same kind of skills. And it's also that reminder that leadership isn't about knowing all the answers and keeping a tight hold of everything. It's the ability to navigate situations with discernment, with calm clarity, in a kind of strategic way. And this often starts with being just curious and asking questions rather than having to know it all, which obviously then leads to a little bit more information and education so you can make really good choices. And that's what I want for women. I'm sure that's what we all want for women. And it feels so much more empowering to be the leader of your own life rather than just trying to manage it, because that just feels really heavy.
And we talk about this all the time, that people sometimes feel that menopause happens to them and it's not something they can control, but they do have more control than they think. Lucy, you coach leaders to lead with courage and authenticity. And I think these rules can apply for women who want to lead their menopause journey in the same way.
Yeah, totally. Because at each stage through this life change that we're going through, we're being called on and questioned about our bodies, our emotions, our spiritual practices, our mental health. We're being called to question everything because we are going through a change. And that really is an act of courage to answer those questions, to face up to it. And then as you're doing it, if you've got a really good level of self-awareness, which is an absolute leadership skill and trait in itself, then you can actually then go through it with authenticity, asking, does this feel right for me? Or, I'm being given 6, 7, 8 different opinions here. Which one works for me? What's my true self? And then that's where the clarity comes in. So there's absolutely the courage to ask the questions, to look at your present situation, which again, that's just a leadership principle. Then it's absolutely about saying, and what works for me, what is right for me, and then leading forth with clarity.
And Karen, you approach this in a as the visualizer. You approach this. I love that. I love that term. But you approach it also in a different way, helping women reconnect with their intuition and with their energy. How do you see that playing a role in women as they're transitioning through perimenopause and menopause? It's more important than ever, isn't it?
Well, I think we need more help than ever before. And I think it's a time of life when we realize how much we've been overdoing it and how much we've been fixing and resolving and taking responsibility for things that actually weren't even ours to assume in the first place. So I think it's a major time of resetting, and it's a time when we get to listen to our instincts, maybe even for the first time in our lives, where we say, I have this feeling. I am learning this about the feeling. This is what I really want to say. And I'm going to start redesigning my life in accordance with what I really need. I understand this is a change, but I'm not going to do it in the same way. And I feel like it's a time of empowerment. And I've worked with thousands of women, from CEOs to surgeons to survivors of trauma, supermodels, and we all are showing up with the same things, the same issues, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, a lack of confidence all of a sudden, not feeling like ourselves. And this tells me that there's a lot of work for us all to be doing on the inside, because what every single woman has is this absolute ability to make things happen and to lead. And so my job really is to just kind of help them clear away a lot of the clutter and get into the core of who they already are, so that they can really, really lead and really own their truth.
Well, I am very excited to get in and start clearing some clutter with the two of you, to explore what it really means to be the CEO of your menopause. We're in good hands, everybody, and we're ready to have some fun, I think. So I've mapped out 5 steps to get us started, and I would love your take on how we can help women lead their well-being, with confidence and clarity. So, all right, let's jump in, shall we? So, step 1 is know your business. Understand the landscape. Lucy, you and I have had this conversation as well, in terms of your journey with perimenopause. Was sometimes we don't even know what it is, and until we have awareness of what it is, then we can do something about it. So, I believe you can't lead what you don't understand. How can women, if you're starting a new business and you're entering into this phase, where do they need to start?
So what I always encourage any leaders to do is to almost do a bit of a map of your current life. It's like a Polaroid picture. In coaching, we might use something called the Wheel of Life. You can, if you're a business strategist, you'll be familiar with the fishbone exercise. The one that I like to use is drawing like a web, a little cobweb. So you've got all the different strands of different parts of your life, and it might be your health, your libido, your aching muscles, your tolerance levels, whatever the things are around the outside. So just put a load of those strings coming out from the center, and then you've got the connectors that go in between, and you start drawing those. So what are the connectors between each part that really brings those systems, those parts of yourself together? Now, it might be that it's food, it's diet, it's sleep, it's hydration, it's social connection, laughter, movement, whatever the things are, you start connecting them. And then you can start looking at, well, how frayed are they? Because we know when we've got all of our systems in place, the cobweb, even though it's really delicate, actually becomes a really strong structure. So have a look, which of those strands that connect may be a bit frayed, which are absent altogether. And so you're getting this big map of me, my life right now. And then you can keep going and checking in on it and giving it a score. Yeah, this one is 10 out of 10. I'm doing this one. But this one only, 1 out of 10. So this one needs some attention, and it'll start then helping you to strategically prioritize. What do I need to fix now? What do I need to learn more about? What do I need to do to move it to a 2 or a 3? So that's something that I would do for those people definitely who are already, in business. They understand how to form a strategy, how to make a plan. But what they often don't do is look at, well, what's going on right now in the present.
I absolutely agree. And I love that idea of just kind of taking a minute to write everything down and score yourself on how you're doing. And sometimes you have time for yourself, sometimes you don't. But if you can then start moving that marker along, you can see progress. Karen, we talk about menopause like a transformation, not decline. How can reframing this idea in women's heads help them feel more empowered as they go through this transition?
Well, we're all on a journey and we're all here to grow and learn. And when you look at the journey, from the very beginning and you look to, perimenopause and then the postmenopause, we've lived a lot already. And I see it as it's almost like an unfolding of more. But as we do that, we also start to shift away the things that, to be honest, we probably don't even really want anymore. There comes a point in time when we go, this is my life. Am I where I want to be? Is this not only where do I want to be, but more like, how am I feeling on the inside? And am I fulfilled? And do I feel joy? Am I at peace with who I am and my journey so far? And if the answers are yes, then we're doing something really right. But if the answers are more like, or if there's like a flat line even, then it's telling us that we are slightly out of sync with the journey of our whole life. Because I always say to women, at this point, what's the plan for the next 25 years? What's your 25? Not 1 year, but 25 years. Like, where do you want to be? Like, where are you going? Let's forget, let's forget about like, I've got to get it figured this year. Let's give ourselves more time, more breath, and let's look into the future. And that's where the idea of the visualizer comes in. Because everything we do, everything we want, we need to see ourselves doing it. And then we need to feel the feelings of doing it. And that's when we start to almost like map out our life's journey in a different way. And it's almost like time to start thinking bigger. And I don't mean that from a like ego place. I mean it from like a place of like this whole journey, and extending ourselves out, because I feel like we waste so much time and energy in looking backwards almost, when actually what we need to do is come into our power today, listen to what's happening on the inside today, and then use that to inform us to almost like reach back out again. Because I'm always like, well, what's on the shelf for you? What dreams have you not yet taken down off the shelf? Let's get into some of that, because that's when women start to come back to life again, because they go, oh, there's all these things I used to dream of, like, being a dancer or a singer, or it can be absolutely anything. And I'm like, well, you can still do that. What's stopping you? And I think we need to remember that we've got a long journey ahead of us. So why not? Why not go for it?
I mean, we'll spend almost 50% of our life in menopause. That is a lot of life to live, and a lot can happen there. I'll throw this out to either of you, whoever wants to take it, but how, I know we've talked about this, in preparation for this episode, but this tension between who I am and who I'm becoming. It's like, okay, there's this whole life ahead of me, but but I'm this person and I have 2 kids and I'm married and I have this job and how do you help people move through that?
I was going to say, I'll just speak to one point and then I'll hand over to Karen. I also just want to recognise that there's also a piece of mourning that happens about who I once was. And a lot of women that I talk to are almost like in denial initially about this new life change. And I think we need to give time to be able to acknowledge and say our goodbyes or see where we are now. And it's things like, trying to say goodbye to our maybe dream of having a baby. Even if we didn't plan one, you still got to be able to mourn the fact that you can't do that anymore, and your changing body and your vitality that you had when you were 21, which you might get it back, but it's doubtful. So I think before we look at where we are now and where we need to move forward, I think there is that grieving process and that acceptance of this is who we are today. Over to you, Karen.
I go into this place of like the perfecting and the waiting, because there'll always be a reason not to do something. And when I think about it, I always think, am I overthinking this? Am I trying to make something perfect? There's something about who I am today. I put a lot of time and energy into saying, I trust you today. I trust you now. You may not have been right in the past, or you may not have been the most powerful version of yourself in the past, but right now you are. And I think that's a really important place to build the future from. Because if we come into ourselves today and we sort of take the time to listen and refocus ourselves, we have everything we need. All the answers sit inside us, and no one can tell us that. We have to learn that ourselves. So that's why I love the idea of the anchor of the person I am today, and knowing that everything we do today is building our future into the person who we're also becoming. And it's like holding space for both those things, because otherwise we might wait and we might never take those steps. And again, I'm all about like a life that's well lived, a life that's lived until the last breath, as opposed to this waiting for something to land. I think we've got to go out there and make things happen sometimes.
So it's almost as if everything has led you to this point. Like
Yes.
you can use all of that. And Lucy, thank you for also bringing up the grieving part, because this might sound really silly, but I know for me, I would be on the tube in London, and there was a phase where, like, young women would walk onto the tube, and I'd be like, huh. Like, huh, all right. And then I kind of, because that was me acknowledging that I'm not that person anymore. Like my skin has changed, my body has changed. I'm not going to be able to have children anymore, like you mentioned. And then eventually I found myself at a stage sitting on the same tube and seeing young women walk on and going, oh, she's really beautiful. Oh, that's I love her energy. I've kind of come through to the other side of it, but the grief part is important. So, for everybody listening right now, I want you to take a second and think, do you know which phase of your menopause you are in right now? And what does that mean for your energy, your focus, your health? Think of that spider web that Lucy mentioned. Look at different parts of your life and just take a minute and think, where are you in your journey? Step 2. This is now strategy and systems. So we understand the business of menopause. Now it's about what strategies and systems we want to put into place. We all know the saying, what gets measured gets managed, from the corporate world. In your Wise Women Lead work, you say we've all been taught the smart stuff, but not the heart stuff. Karen, do you want to expand on that?
It's about really listening into the whisper of the heart. And even allowing ourselves to drop down into the heart, because we have been all programmed to use our heads, which we need. And the mind is so important. We want to be really best friends with our mind, and we want to know when our mind needs our support. But we also have this whole system that goes from like the neck downwards, and the heart space, this central place of the chest is also the inner temple. So from the holistic work, it's like when I say, to a woman, close your eyes, let's take some breaths and let's drop down into the chest. And everything stands still for a while. And there's a slowing down and the heart starts to regulate. And when the heart starts to regulate, the brain starts to produce different brain waves, and it's much more softer and rhythmic. And from that place, we're really starting to open up. We're starting to be more creative, and we're not in that reactive, highly sensory place that we can often, get caught up in something that's an old pattern. We're much more further back in the body, and we're much more heart-centered. People call it in leadership, to be a heart-centered leader. It means that you've got this access to so much more. And when we start to then tune that into the rest of the body and all of the, the different parts of the body that women work from, such as, the core or the gut, a lot of women say, oh, my gut's telling me this. And I now know that a lot of that is actually the womb. So the womb starts to speak to us and engage as well. And we've got all of this resource inside us, but nobody has taught us how to access it. And it has been lost through time. And I feel like, we've had to sort of like put our armor on, get out into the world, hustle and fight and push our way forward to get into like these top seats, and we get to a point where we're like, we have access to so much more. And so just even that start of the heart, start there, and then start to reconnect and bring everything together. And we get led from such a deeper, wiser place. And that's what Wise Women Lead is all about. It's about coming back into the body and tuning in deeper, and then listening, and then moving back out into the world, because we've all got big jobs to do. It's not about disconnecting and not being in the world. It's about being in the world, but from a elevated, more wise place.
And it sounds like trusting those systems. Those systems are within us, but we learn to ignore it. Even if you're walking down a street at night and there's a man behind us. I was talking to a friend the other day. I'm like, isn't it weird how we're conditioned? We're walking down the street and we want to cross to the other side, but we feel bad because we don't want to make him feel bad. We're so conditioned not to listen to our gut, which is crazy. Lucy, if we treated that, our gut and our heart, like a business, are there, I don't know, are there symptoms, are there KPIs, that we would be tracking? I don't know how you started managing when you became more aware of your perimenopause too. Were there things that you started paying attention to, tracking more, listening to?
Yeah, so the whole of my body was at some points it just felt completely out of control, and I would get like complete brain fog where I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't recall names and things like that. And so at that point, rather than, because there was always a deep panic when that started happening. So immediately I would do what Karen says and just take a deep breath, because I would notice it. And I think this is the first thing. It's like, notice in your body first. When your brain and your normal cognitive functions that you've always overly relied on, when they start getting all jumbled, the only place you can go is back into your body. And I think so that's the first thing. It's like when you're noticing anything, for me, I tend to carry it as tension in my shoulders. So my shoulders get higher and higher and higher, the more out of sync I am. So that's where I know. Other people, they get migraines, they might get that gut or flutter in the stomach. So it's noticing that. And I think it's also about getting feedback from other people, which again it's a huge business skill. And it was actually my daughters who gave me the feedback that, Mum, you're losing it. You're really short-tempered. Why are you snapping at us? So again, just noticing, oh, there's something going on here. And all of that feedback and all of that information, then I could pay attention to it and then become familiar with it. So it was almost like, okay, what's ground zero? What's my neutral space? And then I could start tracking, am I over the line? Am I under the line? And what can I then do to get myself back in flow? But the only person that's ever really going to know how to put a number on this or sense the feeling is us by tuning into our bodies and taking all of that information in.
Yeah, I love the line that not everything that can be measured matters, and not everything that matters can be measured. And I've had so many doctors on the show. There's been so many conversations around, oh, go get a blood test, go get a blood test to find out about your hormones. And especially if you're still cycling and in perimenopause, you're not going to get a real reading. They can do your bloods. It's good to know what your baseline is, but what the doctors need to be more interested in, if they're not already, is how do you feel? It's all those other things that are going on outside of the blood work that are important to know. I see you're both nodding there.
Well, the blood test can be great for picking up other things. There may be something else happening and we want to be able to rule that out. So that's why I think the blood tests are great, because it's like, well, it might not show us about perimenopause, but maybe our thyroid's underactive, or maybe there's something else going on. So great, but it doesn't necessarily help us to determine where we are on the journey. But however, if we tune into all the signs that we're getting, then I think we get a pretty good picture of where we're at. And that's what I've learned to trust more than anything.
So for everybody listening, as we complete step 2, if you ran your body like a business, what would you start paying attention to today? So if you ran your body like a business, what would you start paying attention to today? Step 3, people and culture. We've talked a little bit about this already. Behind every great leader is a strong team. Lucy, leadership, it's relational. How can women bring their vulnerability, their courage in having the conversation about menopause at work and at home?
So I have to share with everyone that one of the hardest things for me to do was to name it openly, or then ask for help. I wanted to almost be in denial or keep it a little bit of a secret, because there was a bit of shame around there. There was concern for myself, but I didn't want other people to worry about me, until I then actually did have the courage to ask for help. And the result that I got was completely unexpected, because every woman who's going through it this age or who's slightly older, they were like, oh, yes, let me give you some support, let me help you, let me give you some advice. So that what we perceive as being the most terrible thing in the world by opening up about this is actually the thing that saves you the most. And I had to push through this mentality of, you've got to keep it all together. You're an independent woman, to learn to be vulnerable and say, I'm struggling. Or I don't know what's happening with me. I don't feel like myself. I've lost my mojo. And then in terms of work, that's a tricky one, because not all workplaces currently are set up for menopause. And so you definitely need to have a look at what's out there. Maybe talk to a colleague, maybe talk to your HR, maybe talk to your boss if you've got that kind of relationship, and just say, I'm still brilliant at doing the work. I just maybe need a little bit of time out, or I might need to change my working hours, or just change the pace at what I'm working with. Just the same as any other kind of health thing that you might be going through. But yeah, that vulnerability and courage will only take you somewhere better. That's what I found personally anyway.
Oh, I'm so happy for you that it went that way for you. And I hope more businesses are not even just helping the women at work, but the men at work. I had a story in my old business. One of my HR colleagues had said she was coaching somebody on the senior leadership team, and he was having an issue with another female member of the leadership team. And she was coaching him around menopause and teaching him that this is something that could be going on with her. You need to have some more compassion, or maybe ask her different questions. Be curious and ask her. Don't just assume, in how he was managing dealing with that. So I thought that was really clever leadership on her part. Karen, there's so much noise out there, right? For women, there's the symptoms, and then there's the supplements, and then there's the diets, and then there's the exercise and the breath work and the blah blah blah. You know, how can women, we were talking, you were talking to me earlier about the benefits of actually speaking with people. We've talked about this now, how that opens up a whole world for women when they actually start talking about it. Because we were having a conversation earlier about checking in with ourselves and having a moment of solitude. And you raised a really great point about actually connecting with another person, and that energy and that frequency exchange, how that can really help lift women when they're bombarded with everything that's going on. They don't even know where to start. Can you share that with everybody listening a little bit more? Because some people are sitting at home thinking that they're just going through this by themselves, or they don't want to talk to their husband about it. Or, like I said, it's just overwhelming. You go through Instagram and there's a million things that you're scrolling through. Eat more protein, eat more legumes, do strength
Yeah.
training. You must lift this amount. But I loved this energy exchange that you were talking about when you can actually sit with somebody.
Well, we need each other. I mean, that's a fact. And women especially need other women. And when we come together in the same space, and that can actually be online as well. It's still, the frequency of energy goes through the screens. It really does. But we need to be live. That's the thing that I have noticed through my work. I've done a lot of pre-recorded stuff for big companies, and it's great. But when I am live in the space with other women, something magical really, really happens, because it's happening right now, right here. And if we can be in the same room, even better. But it's like a baby needs its mother's nervous system from birth all the way up to being 2 years old. And I feel like during this life phase, we go into something and our hormones are affecting our body and our brains. And what we need is to be around each other, to have conversations, but also to regulate. So when I'm doing leadership work, I will show up and I will be regulated, and I will make sure that I'm absolutely regulated. So what's coming through from me is a calm heart, a nice rhythmic heartbeat, and my brain is also working in sync with that. And I know that when I'm in that space, and I have a series of rituals and practices that I do, some take maybe 5 seconds and some take a little bit longer, but I am there fully in my power and in my presence, so that I can hold the space for the people in the room and for the women in the room, so that they don't need to worry about that. And from there, it's almost like a feeling of safety, or like, that person who shows up calm and regulated, people are like, oh, thank you. They don't even know, but they can feel something from you. And that's really what's needed in the world. And as leaders and as women leaders, the more we can do that work, we're going to show up, our impact's going to be huge. And it means that we're not just measuring the outputs, because we can get into what I do has got to be bigger and better next time, and I've got to work even harder. And we all know that story. And I think during perimenopause, that it begins, at that perimenopause point when we can start to say, I actually don't want to do it like that anymore. And I want to come from a more regulated place, because I have a big job to do in the world. But it's not about like the hustle and the push and the stress and like, I'm so stressed and let's get that out into the world. It's more measured and like, I'm going to show up regulated, and then I'm going to create from that place. And people around you will sort of start to sync with you. And that's when you have true impact, in my opinion.
I love that idea, because you had said to me, if you're dysregulated and you show up with somebody who's regulated, how that can help shift the energy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just a visual in my mind. So for everybody listening, who is on your support team right now? Step 4, rest, restore, and ROI, return on investment. All right, I struggle with this one. Rest as a leadership strategy. Lucy is laughing. She's got like the biggest smile on her face right now. Our culture rewards doing, doesn't it? I mean, we have been conditioned that rest is being lazy. I have this, I am the daughter of immigrants. And I was always told I had to, clean the house. And after the house was clean, then we could sit down, or then you could go out and see your friends. But what happens when we start looking at rest as a leadership skill?
I was going to say, I had similar parents and similar messaging. Yeah, my parents, if I stayed in bed past 7:30 in the morning at the weekend, my mum would have the Hoover and, saying, come on, get up out of bed. But ironically, my parents at the weekend would always have a half-hour nap after lunch. And I used to think it was crazy, but now I totally see the merit of it. And my dad was, a director of a auto manufacturing company. And so he absolutely said, no, this is my time. This is what I'm going to do. However, I didn't realize that until probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And it was actually during the COVID years where we were all tucked up and we couldn't go anywhere that I actually allowed myself permission to just rest. And what I always found time and time and time again is after a moment of rest, that is where my best thinking, my best energy, my best insights come from, my inspiration. And we all know about the eureka moments when, you're doing something completely unrelated to the problem at hand, and then you get the idea. And the rest is exactly that. And it can be as simple as sitting on the sofa reading a book on, in the evening or a Saturday afternoon. It can be going for a nice leisurely walk, not with the destination in mind and you've got to get there in a certain time, just lazily, calmly walking. It's looking at the moon, the sunset. It's just sitting down for a minute and having a rest, or that bubble bath with the candles. It's whatever you need, but I guarantee you, nobody ever feels worse after a rest.
I love the nap. My one girlfriend who works from home as well, she'll message me every once in a while, I don't know, like mid-morning, and she'll be like, I just went back to bed." And I'm like, "Yes, good for you." Just for a little 20-minute kip. But I think I mean, you touched on it, this rest translates into so much better decision making, so much better leadership for your family or for your work or creativity that flows from it. Karen, how do you help clients do you help them work with their energy as well? I was at this health summit, and Elisa VT is the founder of that MyFlow app, and she is really championing this idea of cycle syncing. And she says, everybody's on their circadian rhythm, and you have your when you wake up and when you go to bed, but women also have an, if I'm going to say it right, infradian rhythm, which is their menstrual cycle, and peak concentration times, peak, I guess, I don't know, outgoing times. That's not
Yes.
a technical word, of course. But do you work with women and their different energy cycles? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing. I am also a Reiki practitioner. So I mean, I've gone off and done loads of holistic practices and trainings alongside the more serious, like, the professional side of it as well, because I wanted to be able to do yin and yang and bring the two together. And I really felt like, especially at this time of life where you're like, you know what, that really worked for me yesterday, but it's not working for me today. I need something a little bit different. And I think when we tune it back into our bodies, if we feel good in our body, then it's working really well. But if we don't feel good in our body, then something is off. And we can choose so many different things to get us back into, oh, I feel much better. I'm so grateful to myself for allowing myself to, it could be a nap. It could be as simple as a nap, or it could be something more. I mean, when, I had PTSD. So I learnt about extreme, the real extreme side of it. I was already a Reiki practitioner, but I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was 42. Then I went into obviously the postpartum. I can never say that. And, so it was like PTSD, pregnant, postpartum. My life was just like, I am so stressed. I wasn't sleeping at night because you don't when you've got a young baby. And there was so much going on in my body, and I was so viscerally triggered that I then had to go more hardcore when it came to energy management. And I learned all those skills because I was like, I have to get my internals and my energy under control and my nervous system under control, because I've got a young child and I'm responsible for her. And I don't want to pass along, what I'm experiencing in my body. I don't want her to be feeding off that, knowing that some of it will already have been transferred. So I went on a huge, huge journey of regulation and worked with an amazing, amazing woman called Jane McCampbell Stewart. And she taught me the EFT tapping and working with scripts. And that has been the only thing that I have worked with over the course of my life that genuinely soothes the brain and moves things around the body so that you can be present in the moment. So I used to fear being triggered, but I don't fear being triggered anymore because I know exactly what to do. And I have a range of different skills that really work. And then I do that work with women because I realize that we all need that and we need access to these types of tools because as we get into perimenopause and, further along the line, our systems need so much more attention and care. And we've got to talk about this. It's really, really important not to sort of try and struggle on in silence, but actually to go, my energy's not right. I am going to pull this one off the shelf and this is what I'm going to do today because it works.
And because we can get so in our heads, can't we? And, we can say, oh, I'm like my energy. And you're like, how am I going to fix it? But if you have to get into the body a little bit
Yes.
more to release it as well. So for everybody listening, all right, that was step 4. But if you treated rest like a business investment, what would you do differently? So if you treated rest like a business investment, what would you do differently? All right, we're at step 5, ladies. The final step, Lucy and Karen, confidence and reinvention. So I was thinking of menopause kind of like, a lot of people think, or it's been positioned in society and culture like it's the end and all this decline. But I was looking at it like organizational transformation, right? Like it's not the end. It's actually a powerful new beginning. Might need some new leadership or a different type of leadership than maybe was working before. But Lucy, maybe you can talk us through like a leadership mindset and how that plays into the stage of reinvention. If you're working with a CEO or other companies and they're going through organizational transformation, you really have to bring people with you, don't you? You have to bring them on the journey with you. So I don't know, how can we give ourselves, I guess, what are some of the concepts surrounding leadership mindset? And then how do we give ourselves permission to lead differently?
So, one of the first things I would say is that during this transformation, and again, any kind of business transformation, you are going to get into the weeds and it's going to feel hard work at some point. And then eventually, because you can feel yourself emerging, like from a woman's point of view, it's almost like you've come out of the cocoon and you're the butterfly. In this approach, when you're thinking systems, business systems, there's always that murky bit where there's that questioning, thinking like, is this the right way? Who am I? What am I becoming, etc. But if you've got a really clear vision of who you want to be, so back to the visualizer element about when you do emerge, how do you want it to be? Setting some boundaries, or maybe getting involved in some new hobbies, or speaking up for yourself about this version of yourself that you're going to create, because you've grieved the past version, but you've taken the best bits along, the bits you want to retain. You're looking at where you are now, and then you're visualizing where you want to be, and all of the experience and strengths and the fun and the vitality that's there on the other side. And it is really important to bring other people along the journey with you, because you will be changed as a human at the end of it. And what we often see, especially in close relationships, is when people don't explain the journey that they're on or who they want to be on the other side of this, their hopes for the future, their dreams for the future. The other person who may have been living with them for the last 20, 30 years will be like, who the hell is this person? So just like any other leader, you need to communicate. You need to be able to then align the vision with your family and your friends, so that they're not worried that you're actually having a midlife crisis. No, you've thought about this. You've done it strategically. You're really clear on who you want to be, where you want to be, and what you need from them. Sometimes you need to be able to explain to other people, this is what I need from you in this moment, or this is how I want you to be on this journey with me. So again, you're allowing them to weigh in and buy in and stand side by side with you in the future.
I love that idea and that picture of people walking side by side with you. Karen, is there any kind of a grounding exercise or a reflection exercise or a practice that can help women be more compassionate with themselves or reconnect with themselves?
Yes, absolutely. There's so many things. And I think really we've got to listen to our bodies and say, this has happened to me. Am I in a yes or am I in a no? Now, the yes or no is really important because it's almost like I'm in perimenopause today. I'm actually in a no to perimenopause today. I don't want to be in perimenopause today. I don't want to be here. Um, how do we then, and this is where I would come in, like, how do we shift that no into a yes? How do we help the brain to sort of wrap itself around what we're experiencing? And how do we then move into the body? And I would say, like, tapping, you can dance, you can put music on, you can go for a walk, but that's going to sort of get you back into your body. But then if the body's holding stress, if it's in a no, we need to move all that, we need to wash it all through like the washing machine. So that's the work that I think is the most powerful. And we can have a go of that together, but we want to be rewiring the brain to to be able to release what's not helpful, release those old beliefs. This is the time to do it fully and get into the body's amazing system that's there.
Talk us through this tapping. I mean, I've heard
Okay.
about it before. I've seen I mean, I think my daughter was watching an old episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and Boy George was, like, tapping. So what is it? And can we do a short
Sure.
I'm in, I'm ready.
Okay.
And I'm sure everybody
So
else is listening too.
So what we're going to do is we're going to work with this part of the hand, which I call it the karate chop. So if you just do this, just to get the right point, as if you're going like, ha, ha, and you're chopping some wood. Okay. So this is the psychological reversal, and this is going to reverse any negative thinking, any limiting thoughts back around the brain, and it's going to come out much more positive. So we're going to work with a little script, and you did give me some information earlier, so I'm going to work with that, and I'm just going to ask you to repeat what I say line by line. You ready?
I'm ready.
Take a deep breath. Even though I have no idea where this will go,
Even though I have no idea where this will go,
I hold myself in compassion.
I hold myself in compassion.
Even though I want absolutes and to control everything,
Even though I want absolutes and to control everything,
I hold myself in compassion.
I hold myself in compassion.
Even though I feel frustrated by my need to control,
Even though I feel frustrated by my need to control,
I hold myself in compassion.
I hold myself in compassion.
Even though this is all happening at the same time,
Even though this is all happening at the same time,
I give myself permission
I give myself permission
to be pleasantly surprised
to be pleasantly surprised
by how it all turns out.
by how it all turns out.
And I wonder what it will be like
And I wonder what it will be like
to let go of expectations of myself and others.
to let go of my expectations of myself and others.
And I wonder what it will be like
And I wonder what it would be like
to take a higher view
to take a higher view
of where I am now.
of where I am now.
And I give myself permission
And I give myself permission
to let go a little bit more,
to let go a little bit more,
take some more risks,
take some more risks,
and even make some mistakes.
and even make some mistakes.
And I give myself permission
And I give myself permission
to be all in
to be all in
with no big outcomes.
with no big outcomes.
And I give myself permission
And I give myself permission
to hold all of this
to hold all of this
just as permissions
just as permissions
and to keep doing things exactly the same way as I always have.
and to keep doing things the same way as I always have.
And you can start to take a nice deep breath in and then blow it out. And give your spine a wiggle. Release it all. And how are you right now?
Yeah. Well, you touched on some things that were very deep for me, in that I'm sure a lot of people listening may be struggling with that need to control things as well.
And what's in the body? Like, what is the body saying to you?
It's saying to like to be gentle with myself, like to be, I guess more compassionate. And you said something then about looking at it at a higher level. Like I think if I look down on what I'm doing right now, then there's a lot and there's been a lot of progress and it's really great. But yeah, you get so stuck in doing, right? And moving it faster. I want it faster. I want it faster. Or why isn't going the right way? But things are actually, that was a really lovely thing to stop and kind of float above it and look down on it.
Yeah, and you
Um,
can do this, as many times as you need. Every time you feel like your head's like taking over and driving you, just this and say some words. Doesn't have to be those words, it could be something different, but you will find something different that comes from within as opposed to what's necessarily going on in your brain, which is telling you push through, struggle on, no rest needed, that's the old story. And here, as we come back in and we use different points, we're creating the new story and the new version of it, and it is higher level because it's coming from in here.
and remind me, what is the significance of the karate chop?
This is a psychological, so this connects into the brain. Now, each part of the body has a different point, but this is always a good place to start because often when we get into the fear and the hustle and the like, we don't have time for rest and all of that. It's because our brain is, I call it the whipping stick. Like the whipping stick comes out, it's like faster, harder, more. And what we want to say is, hold on one moment, let me just check in. Okay. Actually, that's not what's coming through from my body. What's needed right now is something a little bit more gentle, more compassion. We reboot, and then you come back out.
The other thing that just popped into my head was, as we talked about rest earlier, that even taking that, I don't know, what was that, like a minute, like to check in with yourself, that, you could be going about your day and so busy rushing to get the kids and rushing to get dinner ready and or rushing at work, whatever it may be. Just to take that 1 minute, you can, like, I feel a bit more relaxed about, like, even I'm like, oh God, where are we now in this interview?
You look different. You do look different. And it's like there's a softness about you. And that softness was always there. She's in there, but there's a softness and and people feel it and they see that in you and they go, tell me what you do, like how do you manage to stay calm? You're still doing great things, you're still showing up in the world. And it's these little things that we can do for ourselves that, like I said, you could go for a retreat for a week and come back feeling the same. That can be really great. And I love that. I'm a big fan of, lying down for a while, but this is really, really helpful in the moment.
I think for everybody listening as well, what's one small act of self-leadership you can take this week, even if you just karate chop your hand for a minute? It works, I can tell you that. All right, we have talked about leading through menopause as we would lead a team or a business, with awareness, with structure, compassion. The final question we asked all of our guests, Karen and Lucy, knowing what we know now about how we can apply leadership skills to managing our menopause, what would you tell our 35-year-old listener?
I would say trust yourself. What you're experiencing is a shift. And yeah, don't let anyone tell you that you're fine if you don't feel fine with your energy levels. Trust your body.
What would you tell our 45-year-old listener?
Rest and then recover and then come back.
And what would you tell our 55-year-old listener?
Listen to your heart, do what you need to do, and come back and keep sharing.
We have sadly, I think we've lost Lucy, but I want to thank you both so much for being part of the Menopausitive community. I think today, we went through these 5 steps of understanding your business, like understanding your menopause experience and what phase you're in, educate yourself, knowledge is power, track and measure what you need to measure, so that you're informed if you want to go see your GP or a menopause expert. Make sure you have your team around it, team around yourself. Advocate for your needs and rest, restore, and recover, because I think that return on investment is going to pay dividends in how you feel over the long term. Karen, how can people find you if they want to learn more about you and Lucy?
They can find us at Wise Women Lead on LinkedIn and Instagram, and we also have a web page as well. But if they type in Wise Women Lead, they're going to find us. So thank you.
Wonderful. So being the CEO of your menopause is about understanding your body, making informed choices, and showing up for yourself in the same way you show up for everybody else around you. See you next time. If you love honest chats about life, you will love Say It Sister with my friends Karen and Lucy, two brilliant women exploring confidence, healing, and everything in between. Check it out. Say It Sister, wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and by the way, I knew you were menopositive when you downloaded this episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love bringing this information to you, and I love that you're taking control of your health. You can follow Menopositive on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. Join me next week as we discover more ways to optimize our bodies, because together, we're going to redefine menopause.
I got a good feeling.